their relationship is something I would love to have with my boys.
Yeah.
Daniel's last words to Dad even weren't nice words, but they were joking words, and Dad's proud of it.
What was it? Can we...
Shut the fuck up, chap.
Welcome to the Princess of Possible, where you will hear some inspiring stories of people that have defied the impossible. My name is Emma Money, cystic fibrosis warrior, 2020 Australian of the Year South Australian local hero, or as I prefer, the Princess of Possible. Today's episode of the Princess of Possible is something that is very near and dear to my heart, who I will be talking about. I've invited two very special people on the show today to talk about something that I don't think we talk about enough. So I'm not going to go into it any further. I'm going to let my beautiful guests come on and talk about what we're going to talk about. So today I have the beautiful Carly and Caitlin. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, today we're talking about somebody very, very special, and that is Daniel. Now, Daniel, for those listening, Daniel is your brother who had cystic fibrosis, who passed away, we've worked out, 13 years ago nearly.
Yeah.
This year.
So I'm going to, for me, just a background for the listeners and anyone that doesn't know anything, Daniel and I had a very special relationship on a friendship level. He was like a little brother to me, and I've always said that I will forever honour Dan in the work that I do, and I'll always talk of Dan, but yeah, it hits heartstrings, and I have wanted to talk about his story. It's not up to me to tell it, and I thought what better way than, you know, have his two beautiful sisters do it. Now, Katie, tell everybody, just so they know a little bit about you, tell everyone how old you are now and how old you were when Dan was around.
Yeah, so I'm 17 now, turning 18, and I was 5 when Daniel passed away.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you remember? Tell me.
Well, there's a few things I remember. Like, I remember being in hospital a lot when I lived in Melbourne.
Yes.
There's just certain memories that stick out sometimes that I just think, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't remember big things. I don't remember it all, but I do remember.
Yeah. Okay. So I think let's go to you, Carly, because harder. So I'm not even going to preempt it. I want you to tell us. Obviously, you were 17.
Yeah. So I was 17 when Dan passed away. I'm turning 30 this year. But yeah, so my like with Dan, I obviously grew up with Daniel.
Why don't we talk about that? Let's talk about the fun stuff, the good side.
Yeah, so I didn't know Daniel as hospital Daniel my whole life.
Yeah.
You know, he was sick, but
yeah.
I got a good solid childhood with us running amok, playing wrestling. I'll never forget. Ben, Daniel and I, that's Ben is our older brother.
Yeah.
We'd always just pull the mattress in the lounge room and we'd do WWE, SmackDown, and we'd take each other out all the time. Many, many experiences outside playing cricket. So a lot of backyard cricket. I would always have to be the fielder. Never was allowed to bowl or bat, but having two brothers, it's what you get, I guess.
Do what they say.
But yeah, Dan, he was the big brother that, you know, was so special, is still special. And it was like growing up, we had that, what was it like? I'm trying to explain it was just like a normal brother-sister relationship.
Yeah.
But I found we were a lot closer than
Other
people. Yeah. So like, Dan, you know, when we'd share a bath together.
Yeah.
A lot of people were like, well, that's weird. You know, that's not right. So, well, yeah, we're close. Like, we told each other everything.
Because what's the age difference with you and Dan?
4 years.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so there's 4 years between Ben, Dan, me, and then 12 between Caitlin and I.
Yes. That's a big age difference.
Yes, it is. Yeah, so, I don't know, we were a bit closer than your ordinary brother and sister, I guess, because of him having CF.
Yeah. There
were a lot of hospital admissions, and I'd usually stay at home with Dad, Mum, and Daniel would be in hospital. So that was hard.
How did you go? I mean, I couldn't imagine having a brother or sister, knowing when you get sick, from a CF perspective, you get sick for a couple of weeks at home, you know, you have your own life as well, both of you. So how does that impact you guys? And, you know, I spoke to someone recently, we talked about the accidental attention seeker being the CF person in the family, because you can't help when you're sick, but the whole world has to stop. So your lives would have been put on hold to a degree, I would imagine. But then there's also the side of, how did you feel like your brother is in hospital again and you're watching him, you know, go through so much?
Yeah, seeing him go through everything he went through.
Yeah.
That was really hard. You know, the transplant in Melbourne was probably,
Yeah.
I was a lot older then. So, yeah, when he had his first transplant, I think I was 15, 16,
Mhm.
I think. Then I was obviously a lot older. I could remember everything that we went through as a family.
Yeah.
Whereas growing up, it was just the hospital admission, you know. And I would go in, we'd get takeaway on the way in. We'd sit in his room, play cards, you know. And that was just my normal, though. I didn't think anything different, really. You know, everyone's like, oh, what are you doing tonight? And everyone's got, you know, this sport, that sport. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going in to see my brother. Like,
Yeah.
That was my...
Hang out in hospital.
Yeah, that was my normal.
Sometimes a shock to people as well. Like they're like, oh, you spend all your time in the hospital, but we
Yeah.
just know that.
Yeah, that's what your life is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your normal's not necessarily someone else's normal.
No.
No.
And that's fine.
But yeah, but the attention, you know, I look back now, I understand.
Yeah.
Obviously, looking back now, I get it all completely. You know, Mum needed to be there for Daniel, and then Ben has an intellectual disability as well. So that just added a whole nother element on CF. Look, I did kind of get pushed in the back, and growing up, it was really hard.
Yeah.
Like I had a lot of fights with Mum, I guess you could say,
Oh,
just
of
because,
course.
you know, I wanted the same attention my brothers were getting. You know, I still had needs as well.
Yeah.
Whereas, I look back now, I understand everything.
Now
but
you're older, you
Yeah,
can
I
look
get
back
it
and
all.
appreciate it. But
Yeah.
at the time,
it was really hard
would
because
be.
it's like, hey, I'm here too.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm important as well. But yeah, like I said,
it's. I think it.
I
comes
feel
in
guilty feeling that way.
No, you shouldn't feel guilty. I think it's a maturity
Yeah.
thing too, isn't it?
I'd
Well,
feel the
yeah.
same way now if that was
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Yeah, I think anyone in any normal, in that situation would feel that way. And
Yeah.
that's what I think people don't realise, and we forget to acknowledge that.
Yeah. The
you know,
impact it has on
It
the
does.
yeah.
On the sibling,
Yeah.
like the
And
siblings.
I was the sibling advocate kind of, you know, people forget what they're going through as well,
Yeah.
but they kind of get pushed to the back because it's about that person, and then the parents are that person, and
Yes.
everyone's experiencing it. But as a sibling, you know, you kind of miss out on your parents and your sibling.
yeah.
Like it's not just one, you miss out on both of them.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And then they miss out on, I guess I always have this, I remember like being in hospital with Dan and thinking we had our own little, all of us would say it, we had our own family in there. So for us, you know, at night time we'd go to bed and run amok at night. 8:30 lights are out, but it was more like dimmer lights on and let's see what, you know, trouble we could cause for the nurses. But I would also think, because I have a brother and sister as well, you know, what's going on with them? They're going to bed. I'm not home for 2 weeks. I'm in hospital. I'm going through stuff. Are they worried? Like, you know, do they know that my veins tissued in the night, or my nasogastric tube in my nose has come out? And, you know, I think as a parent now, and you're a parent as well, Carly, but I think you get a whole new appreciation and understanding of, you know, as a parent, the emotional stress and worry that kids don't necessarily even think about. But as a parent ourselves now, it's like, do you worry where, you know, are they sleeping all night? Has your brother gone to sleep at night, and what's happened to him throughout the night? Did that stuff sort of happen?
Yeah, so it was really good. Once I got a phone, like
Yes.
as a team, I'd message Dan all the time. I've still got the messages, but I'd
Yeah.
message him, you know, like, hey, bro, you all right? And he's like, yeah, I love you. Like, I'm all good. Just catching, you know, going to sleep or whatever. So when I got a phone, it was really nice because I could talk to him. Obviously, you
Yes.
could talk to him through Mum's phone, all that. But
Just a bit more private.
it was different because we had our own little chat going on, you know, especially I think it was when they moved to Melbourne and I was still in Adelaide.
Yes.
So that was probably the hardest time for me
Yeah.
because it's not like I could go up to the hospital and see him. I had
So-
to catch a plane.
And you're completing year 12 as well at that time.
Yeah,
So it was
I was
like-
doing
Yeah,
it.
so let's talk about, I mean, we'll probably jump a little bit, but so Dan had one transplant
Yeah.
and needed two for those that are listening. So let's talk about the year leading up of him actually needing to have a transplant, and if I can take you down the memory lane of that and, you know, watching him, I guess, I mean, for me, Katie, I remember you being on his wheelchair, on his foot plate, sort of,
Yeah,
you know.
and his gopher.
Yeah, he had a gopher with his oxygen tank, and
Yeah.
you were sort of an accessory on top of that with him. And, you know, looking back, it's a nice memory to have. But that's why I ask, how much as a 5-year-old, you know, do you remember of that time when he did start to go down that path of lung deterioration?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was first or second near my birthday, his transplant was. And I couldn't have my birthday because Mum was in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that because I was so upset that I couldn't have my birthday. But it was like the 13th of August, wasn't it?
Yes, 2008 he had his first transplant.
Yeah.
And he got a good year and a half, I think, with those lungs. And then he got swine flu influenza A, and
Did he get pneumonia?
Yeah,
I
that's
think
it.
it was
Pneumonia?
yeah.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
got the works basically,
Yeah.
and that kind of just deteriorated the lungs, and then he was back to being Daniel, being sick Daniel, back
Yeah.
in hospital a lot. But yeah, I can't remember if it was the first. I think it was the first transplant because Mum, when he had his first transplant, he had a few complications,
Mhm.
and Mum and Daniel had to live in Melbourne for 3 months. I think it was.
Yeah.
I'm getting confused because there's two
There's-
times.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
the first time, there was a solid time that
Yeah.
they lived in Melbourne and we were all still in Adelaide and we we're going back and forth, like seeing them and that sort of thing. I'll never forget the time they came back to Adelaide. Like
Mhm.
Daniel and Mum came back and the security guard said, "Who's the celebrity?" Because there was that many people at the airport, like welcoming him back. And
Yeah.
I couldn't, it literally, there was like a celebrity coming in. I was like, "Oh, who's this celebrity?" And it was just Daniel rocking
Yeah.
up with Mum, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was the first transplant where
Yeah.
Mum and Daniel were in Melbourne and we were with you.
Yeah,
But yeah, obviously being I reckon you were 3.
yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3.
Being a 3-year-old, I was like, "Where's
understand.
Mum?"
Because that's the time I reckon I dressed you up as a Cinderella.
Yeah, yeah,
To try and make it a bit special, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's hard as well. Like you wouldn't remember much as a 3-year-old at all,
No.
probably.
You just remember the stuff that you missed out. Like,
Yeah.
that's what you do as a 3, you know.
Yeah. And then you hear
remember-
the stories probably that people talk about.
Oh
and-
yeah, I do remember like less sick Daniel, but still sick in the lounge room on the bed that we made, that Dad
Yes.
made for him. There was
Mhm.
one day that I was young and I was like, "Daniel, I'm hungry." He was like, "Oh, go get your own food," and I couldn't reach the microwave, so he waddled out of bed, and I was like, "Can we go to Armworld, like down the road?" And he put me on the front of the Gopher, and we just rode along the main road,
Oh, goodness.
and we'd go get like, I don't know, he'd get a nice coffee
Yeah,
and a
he would
chocky
get- yeah.
donut,
Mhm.
and I'd get a chocky milkshake, and then we'd ride back on the Gopher. And we just, I thought it was the coolest thing because,
Yeah.
you know, my brother could ride me around on this thing,
Yeah.
and I was so cool for it.
So he definitely wasn't sick, Daniel, for you in the same way, I guess, in your way.
Yeah.
Like that you'd have two very different.
Yeah, like I still
Memories.
remember.
kind of only known Daniel was sick Daniel as such compared to
did.
what I've had. Like
Yeah.
knowing Caitlin's life with Daniel,
Well, 5
you
years.
never got like it sounds weird to say, but healthy Dan, you know.
No.
You never had
Yeah.
that running around all the time,
No,
the
I definitely
cheekiness,
didn't have
like,
that.
playing hide and seek and us tormenting Ben.
Yeah.
I think I've just always had either
know the
hospital
stories.
Daniel or lounge room Daniel.
yeah, so lounge room Daniel was pretty
Pretty,
crappy.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was when his lungs deteriorated.
Yes.
And he had a granny flat out the back of our house that was his room.
Yes.
But because he was so sick, he couldn't even walk out to the granny flat where his bed was. So
Mm.
we rearranged our lounge room in the house.
Built
And
a bed.
in the way, it's so sad, but it was so nice because he was always in the lounge. Like you come home and he was always there. And no matter how sick he was,
Yeah.
you know, you could go and sit in the bed and
Give you
talk
a
crap
smile.
and talk
Perk
crap.
up probably
and,
when you walked in.
It was just that world. As soon as you walk in, the lounge room was there. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, hey, Dan. And he'd be like, hey. Like sometimes you want to talk. You just knew, you know, if he was in that.
We're in the mood to talk.
Yeah, in the mood or
Yeah.
not. But he was always there. Whereas if, you know, you're out in a granny flat, you don't always go out to the back of the house.
Yeah, it's effort.
So yeah, it is. That time was really crappy.
So, Caitlin, do you remember then? I guess I know it's not like it's a chapter closed because he'll forever live
Yeah.
within all of us. But you know, when you look at 5 years of Daniel versus 17 years, what have you learnt from having Dan when you've had Dan and being your brother in that
Yeah.
situation and life with him?
Well, to be honest, now
Yeah,
facing problems as a teenager, obviously in school you get them all the time. It's a given.
yeah,
And I just always remember the stuff that he used to say. And I don't remember him saying it, but I know he did because I hear it all the time.
Mm,
Like live your life to the fullest, for example.
mhm.
I've obviously teenage life.
Yeah.
That's the motto.
You're a very mature teenager. though.
And then also don't sweat the small shit.
yeah,
That was
Yeah.
that was a big thing for me, and I've really learnt from that.
yeah,
And that was something that I learnt from him firsthand. Like, you know, even on the night he passed away, and I do remember this because I remember that night really well, which is weird for a 5-year-old to remember.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
when I left the hospital room, I was like, bye, Dan, see you tomorrow. Like, I didn't know any different.
Mm,
And he still, like, couldn't talk or anything. But he gave me the thumbs up, you know,
mm,
all positive because that's how he was.
yeah.
he knew that like he was in the worst situations, he'd just give you a thumbs up and a smile.
Mm.
And, you know, you just knew that everything would be okay
Yeah.
for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He'd
Like-
always put the brave face on
Yeah,
to make you
to
feel
make me feel good. And it's like, he didn't have to do that, but he always did because he knew as a younger sibling who obviously I was so little, he didn't want to be vulnerable in front of me because he thought, she's my 5-year-old sister, she doesn't need to see this.
Yeah. He was strong.
Yeah.
little princess.
Little princess.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Well, what can I say? But yeah, that kind of, I don't know. That's
That's
just,
special to have that of him,
Yeah.
though, and to. It's always hard to say, you know, if you read a book or something, you get a couple of lessons out of it. And I think Dan's story, there are so many lessons from Dan, but
Definitely.
firsthand to be your brother and, you know, have that. And it sounds almost like you're lucky, Carly, you've had extra time,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
And like we talk about the healthy Dan versus sick Dan.
Yeah.
We'll go into that in a little bit.
Mhm.
But for you, Katie, the home, you know, lounge Dan versus the hospital Dan,
yeah,
you didn't get the in your world from what you're
the
saying,
full,
you still had the best time with him.
Yeah.
And he, I guess, will forever be on a pedestal, but
Yeah,
he was
definitely.
Dan, the fun, quirky, crazy, cheeky, mischievous
Yeah.
guy.
you know, like I'll be at home in my bed and I'll just think, I really wish you could see this right now
Mm.
because you know, there's people that I wish he could just meet because I know he'd love them.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's upsetting and it makes me really sad because I'm like, my older brother, I really wish that, you know,
Yeah.
but, you know, I think he'd be so proud.
he would be very proud.
And like, I always think of the positives when I'm upset because he always did.
Mm.
So as much as I'd want him to meet people, he still can see from
Yeah.
wherever he is up there. But yeah,
Yes. Absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
comforting, I guess, to a degree. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be nice if they were Earthside with us. But
yeah, definitely.
absolutely.
But
we find in waves of grief, I guess, ways to accept, you know, we can't see them, but they can see
Yeah.
us, and there's
yeah,
different coping mechanisms. So
definitely.
it's really lovely that you've got so many positive outtakes, so to speak,
Yeah, definitely.
from Dan and himself. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about, probably this is more with you, Carly, the start of Dan getting sick, because we hear about transplants. You know, I've spoken with some people already who have had transplants, and you hear,
Mhm.
you know, the transplant side, it's like, okay, did he just wake up one day and they go, Dan, you need a transplant? Like, what do you remember?
So Dan was sick, but he was just getting sick. You know, the hospital missions were getting longer,
Mm-hmm,
more frequent,
mm-hmm,
and basically his quality of life was just going downhill. So had a talk with the transplant committee, and they basically said, "Yeah, you're a good
Yep.
candidate because you're still reasonably healthy. You know, you're not really sick. You will be able to pull through all that sort of stuff. You have good management after.
yeah.
So yeah, it's probably a good time to go on the list.
yeah.
And then you go on the list, and then it's a waiting game. So you never know. You know, every phone call is
Yeah.
this going to be it? Is
Yeah.
this, you know, you just don't know. So your life's kind of in limbo, especially because the transplants are in Melbourne. Your life is in limbo while they're on the list. So
And if you get
just-
that call and you hear,
it's just
you've got
go.
to get on a plane.
Yeah, you just go then and
fly.
there. So yeah, Mum and Daniel got the phone call. I actually can't remember the first time they got the phone call. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's because I was a bit too young or
You probably have a bit of post-traumatic stress,
Yeah.
to be honest, I think, from it all. Like,
And I think because the second, I remember more about the second time because that
Yeah.
was quite traumatic.
Yeah.
Not the second time he got it, but
yeah, that process.
yeah, that whole process.
Yeah.
I think that was just a bit more. I was older, I understood more,
Yeah.
so I think I remember a lot more leading up to that. But yeah,
Yeah.
the first time I can't remember they got the phone call, but they left. He had one false alarm, I think.
Mhm.
Wasn't it in the middle of the night? as
Yeah, so that's the other thing. It was like in the middle of the night. Royal Flying Doctors, Mum and that went there.
Yeah.
Then I think the lungs deteriorated, and then we got the phone call the next time. But then again, I could be confusing my stories.
well?
Well, it's such a big thing to go through
Yeah,
to
and
be able to give a timeline, I
Yeah.
think. So when, you know, you're trying to recall, and even though having him feels like he was still here yesterday, the
Yeah.
actual process of
Oh.
what you went through
Yeah.
wasn't just an overnight
No,
thing.
it was a long
suffering
time. Yeah.
over
And that's what I said. Your
a
life
few
was in
years.
limbo, like for
Yeah.
such a long time.
yeah.
And then they got the phone. You know, went over there, and then Mum and Daniel were there. Then we were like, right, we need to get over there because you know he's having the transplant, all that sort of stuff. So then we all booked flights. I'm pretty sure, and we went over like straight
Yeah.
away.
yeah.
Then we were waiting. Got there, he came out. Everything was really good to begin with.
Yeah.
And then the night of his transplant, overnight, Mum got a phone call 3 a.m. or something. You need to come back to the hospital. So he had an acute retrovisional injury. That's what he had.
Okay.
ECMO. You have to go on ECMO. What's that?
Oh.
That keeps your heart going.
Is
I
it? Is that
think.
what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had to go on an ECMO machine.
Gosh, if any doctors are listening, we'll
Please,
be
sorry.
right or wrong. But the point is his lungs had filled up
Yeah.
with blood.
Yeah. And then
that
he was on
needed to be out.
ECMO. Yeah. And he was not responsive.
You just pulled
Going-
a photo
going-
album out. Bring that back out and show me. No, because I want to have a look. This
this
is the
is
first
the-
transplant.
Yeah. So this is 2008. It was
Yeah.
13th of August.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Two
So
days
this is
after my
him
birth.
like post-transplant.
Yeah.
And then if you turn up, that's when the ECMO. So yeah, you can see the tubes and stuff. That was, I walked
Oh,
into that
God.
basically
Do you remember that?
Yeah. very,
Yeah.
very clearly. That's what I,
These photos, they're pretty full on to look at, knowing Dan, whether you know him or not, but for you.
I think we kind of warned. So the first time seeing it was like horrible. There's no other word for it except for crap. Like,
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
I got no response from him like I usually would. Usually
Yeah.
I'd walk in and be like, hey, you know, and that big cheeky grin.
Mm.
But I got nothing. I just got tubes. And that was harder. Seeing him
Mm.
so vulnerable, I think that was the hard, like, that's not Daniel.
No.
You know, like I knew that's not his.
And that's the big thing, I
Yeah.
think, looking at it. You know that's not Dan in there.
Yeah.
It's horrible to sort of even say it, but it's a body with tubes in it
Yeah.
laying there. And,
So we kind of limited everyone going in after that because it was just,
yeah.
it was too much. Like you couldn't go in.
That's a lot
that.
to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Even for you to look at these photos now, Katie, like to see that. That's,
So that's how old we were when that's the first transplant.
yeah. And look,
So that's after obviously feeling
Yes.
better. But yeah,
and what a difference. I mean, when you look at the two
Yeah.
photos, it's not. Yeah. My God.
So yeah, that was hard.
And how long was he like that for? Like, how long do you remember, like, in your mind? Because obviously you'll have a takeaway from it. So, your mind, this is Dan, he's had his transplant, he's got these issues. How long until you got back to, like, this photo, the happy
Oh,
Dan?
that was a month. That was a couple months. So he was quite sick for a little bit in hospital. And then, as you can see, what date's that?
23rd of August.
So that's the end of, so he had the transplant 13th. That's the end of August.
Yeah.
And yeah, then he obviously started having to go through all the physio, like everything that comes after a transplant. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
multiple physio, there, like
Well, there's a lot of treatment, isn't
there's
there?
a lot of treatment.
I think that's also probably not something that everyone realises. I think transplant, you're fixing a problem with another problem,
Yeah.
almost. Would you agree?
Yeah.
You know?
He like I said, he got another year and a half out
Which
of
is-
these lungs, which is, it's not a long time.
What
but
did he do
when you
in
look
a
at
year and a half? Like,
what did he do?
So he finally gets these. Let's talk some positives because this
Yeah.
is hard.
So-
none of us have had tears yet. I'm proud of us. And when you look at these photos, it's very confronting. But
Yeah, definitely.
you've got a new life, new lungs. You know what he was? How old? 18? No.
Yeah, that's.
So I was 15. Yeah, so he was 19.
Yeah.
19.
Because, so he, 18-year-old, let's say you're 18, 19, you've got
He
this
lived
new
his
life.
He lived his life. And
So
that's-
what's living
yeah.
life for Dan? What was
So
that in that
Dan,
year?
as you can see, Dan loved DJing.
Yes.
So he actually created his own, sounds like us DJ little business.
Mhm.
He was at the nightclubs, DJing, living, like he was doing parties for, friends.
Yeah.
He was going out.
Mm-hmm.
He literally
He
was
did not
living
hold
life.
back.
So he didn't hold back at all.
No.
He had like a bucket list of things like that he wanted to do before he died, kind of thing. And he basically tried to tick off as many things as he could
Yeah.
in his life. So he did. The thing, he fit so much into his life, in his short life,
Yeah.
that I wouldn't even fit that much into my life. Like, do you know what I mean?
Because you've
Just
been
what-
given, which is horrible.
It's
People
been
with
given
CF in general get that life
Time frame.
expectancy,
Yeah.
and it's just crap. I
So you
always
just-
say,
yeah.
I think that's why people are so driven. Probably good people to learn off of. Exactly what you said. What he's fit in a small
Yeah.
period, you
It's-
could not
no.
do that.
I don't
No.
even think I've done one on his bucket list.
But no, he loved DJing. He played cricket.
Yes.
He went back to playing cricket. I think he even played football.
Did he?
Yeah, he got told he wasn't allowed to play football. So
Yes.
he's like, no, I'm playing football.
Yeah.
Like, so at high school, he played a game of football. It was quite funny. Obviously getting quite puffed out. But
Yeah.
everyone was there cheering him, like, yeah, Coxie, So yeah, he had a game of football, cricket.
And he loved poker.
loved poker.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's obviously when he was that's all he could really do. Sitting in the bed, we were playing
Mhm.
poker. He used to watch poker.
Yeah.
He'd come into the lounge room. That's what would be on TV. He loved having a good punt on the races.
Yes.
You'd sit there and you'd like, I don't know if you would remember, but he would sit there on his bed a lot and just be putting bets on. Like, no, during like, did you win? Yeah, I did actually. I've studied the books today.
Funny, the odds.
And then you'd try to get some tips off, and he's like, no, this is mine. And I'm like, all right, calm down. But yeah, he in that year and a half, he had Ursula.
Yes.
So yeah, he was living life with.
He was engaged.
Yeah, he just did everything really a normal 18-year-old boy would do. 19, I think he was. But
Aside
yeah,
from getting engaged, because that's
Yeah, I was
not...
like, mm,
oh yeah, but he
that's
kind of
the rush of it, isn't
yeah.
it?
Well, she, she was along this whole process with us. Yeah, she was there through all this
All of it,
transplant stuff.
yeah.
So it takes a special someone to
To be through
all
of that.
Yeah.
It's
you
a
know.
lot.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's a photo here that he is so Dan's his personality, tubes and all, but he's still playing funny buggers.
So he took the positive out of everything, and he
Yeah.
always wanted to make sure everyone else was okay over
Him.
him. Even though he had tubes and everything came out, he's like, "Yeah, I'm feeling great." And you're just
Yeah.
like, "You're not feeling great." He's like, "Oh, I feel fantastic."
He was never admit
And
would
he was
he,
like, "Huh?" Like,
yeah.
But he wouldn't let you know how, because he doesn't want you to worry about him. He was
No.
never that type of
He
boy.
didn't want
Like,
to put his pain on anyone else.
Did you ever
and that's one thing he actually. So I was going to quit year 12.
Yes. So you're in
Because-
year 12.
Yeah. So when he deteriorated, and
Yeah.
the whole family moved to Melbourne,
Mm.
and he was the one that said, "You're not stopping your life for me." And I was like, "You can get stuffed." Like, Mum has just agreed that I don't need to finish school. Are you kidding me? Like, this is
Yeah.
amazing.
That's huge.
And at the time, I'm like, yeah, best decision. I'm going to be with my family. It's what I
Yeah.
want. I want to be with Daniel, all that sort of stuff. Because it was really hard leaving to come back. I was living with Alex at the time.
Yes.
To come back, and he was supportive and great in that, but my family were in.
Yes. Now, Alex is your husband.
Fiance.
Fiance.
We're not- no. But he's been
together forever.
yeah, so we've been together 15 years this year. So he's been through it all with
He's been through
me.
it with you too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was so supportive.
But it's not family.
No,
And you
when
need-
your whole family's over there,
Yeah.
it was just, and when Daniel was going through what he was going through and I couldn't be there, that was
Yeah.
the hard part, just because I know Daniel and I had that special bond, we talk absolute crap, but deep down I knew he wasn't okay.
Yeah.
Like he would never really want to tell mum,
No, of
because
course
mum,
not.
that's his mum. And now I understand that as
Yeah.
a mum,
Yes.
but yeah, I don't know, he'd always protect mum. That was his number
Yeah.
one.
But he probably could let down with you.
Yeah, a little bit more than mum anyway.
Yeah.
Because he
Only so
idolised
much
mum.
of a facade. Oh, your mum is
like
an absolute.
that was just his world for that, especially the last, obviously throughout his whole life. But
Yeah.
when he was so sick, it was just,
Him and your mum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and well, they spent the most time together.
Yeah.
They lived there together, and then, but yeah, so them and he, I'll never forget the conversation because I actually couldn't believe mum agreed. And I was like, this is fantastic. Like, I don't need to do year 12. This is
Yeah.
great, And he goes, nah. And I was like, Daniel, shut up. And he goes, no, you're not stopping your life
Mm.
for me. And that's just the person he was. He goes, no, you're going to go back to Adelaide and you're going to finish year 12. And, he knew he knew he was getting sicker. Like,
Yeah.
he knew.
He was aware.
Now I look now and I know things that he's said and he's written and stuff. He knew how sick he was, and he knew he was going to die soon, I think, if he didn't get those lungs.
Yeah.
But he still made me come back and get on with my life.
So you finished year 12
Yeah, I did. I finished year
whilst
12.
he was going through.
So Daniel actually passed away before I finished year 12.
Yeah.
It was my muck-up day, and I got the phone call. Good old muck-up day. Got the phone call to say there's been a set of lungs for Daniel.
Yeah.
And it was like, yes, like he was really sick at that point.
Yeah.
And I told everyone at muck-up day, I'm like, oh my God, my brother's getting new lungs today. And then I think it was in the afternoon, I reckon. So I got a bit of enjoyment out of my muck-up day. At the end of the day, I think my nana actually rang me because mum couldn't and said, we need to get on a plane because the lungs deteriorated and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, what? Like, it's the best day, and I'm coming back down.
Got that.
Nana and I flew over straight away, and we got there, and that was, he literally grabbed my hand. He's like, I love you. And that was the last thing he ever said to me.
Wow.
Like that was, I don't know if he waited or what, but that was the last time he kind of really said much to anyone, I think.
Yeah.
That's the person he is. He didn't want anyone to stop his life around him. He wanted you to get on with your life. Don't worry, I'm fine, keep going,
Yeah.
whatever. I look back now and I'm really glad I've done year 12.
Yeah. Thanks, Daniel. He pushed you.
Thanks, Daniel. That Mum would have let me go. But yeah, that he obviously just wanted to see, his sisters succeed and his family were his number one
Yeah,
supporters.
absolutely.
We were there through it all, and he knew. I think he knew deep down how much impact it had on me.
I was going to say, did you ever have hard chats with him? Like,
yeah,
I remember having a chat with him in the hospital once, sort of saying, what happens when what happens if you were to die? And he goes, Emma, we don't talk about that. And I said, no, but I want to. Like, I can see spirits.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Because I'm not ever coming back. I'm
Yeah.
not. He thought I was crazy. But I remember that being a very quick conversation, is my point. And he didn't want to talk about it. But it comes back to
That's because he doesn't want
you to worry.
No.
That wasn't an option to even acknowledge that.
No.
If he acknowledged it, it's because he was already doing it in his own way.
And he did. That's the thing. Like, there was some written notes and stuff. Like, I think he started writing a note to Ursi because he knew. Like, he knew he was going to, but he didn't want to tell. He wanted, obviously, to wait because he doesn't. He just never wanted anyone to worry about him.
No.
He's fine. Don't sweat the small stuff. I'm all good.
So you never had a conversation about
Dying.
Yeah.
No,
that was
never.
a
No, we
thing.
never had that conversation. He always, I don't know, like, Mum and I have a great relationship. Like,
Yeah.
she's my best friend and everything. But growing up, it wasn't easy because
Yeah, of
her
course.
attention was on Dan. So Dan was the one I'd always talk to
Yeah.
about, Mum's doing,
Yeah.
He was my he was my person I'd go to talk to.
Absolutely.
And he goes, yeah, I get it, but this is what, he'd kind of support me, but he'd understand.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So you could have that whinge or that
Yeah.
frustration or whatever. And
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
So I think as far as I remember getting told the call, from my memory, it was a Friday.
yeah.
And it was like 1-something in the morning when my mum came into my room and told me, and I thought it was a nightmare. It was,
It would have been the Friday night.
it was the Friday night.
Oh,
the Saturday
Muck
morning
up.
she'd come in and
yeah,
it was
yeah.
Emma, and she
So
sat on my
Friday was the
bed.
mark up day. Yeah. So
Was
that
not-
weekend's a blur.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
But it still feels like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's why I always talk of him, because the positive attitude and the life lessons, like you say, it's don't sweat the small stuff.
Mhm.
Live your life to the fullest. When someone's sort of given an expiry date, so to speak, but then to really be in a situation where, all right, you've got new lungs, but then shit's really hit the fan because the sickness that was completely out of his control happened.
Yeah.
The deterioration of that was completely taken from
Yeah.
him. He was
He was robbed.
cheated.
Yeah.
Yeah, like robbed.
Yeah.
That's the word. Not
Yeah.
cheated, robbed. Absolutely. And for you guys to watch and go through that individually and then together, do you think as a family it brought you closer?
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are a very tight knit family.
Yeah.
Very.
yes, you are.
People think we're a bit weird, but
Yeah.
No, I
People
love
think
it.
we're quite close. But no, when you experience
Do you still
something-
bath together?
no, actually.
That's no.
No, that was just genuine. That's because it was weird because everyone's like, but you're like, we were like 10 and, we weren't
Yeah.
babies.
Alex
No.
still says that's weird.
Alex is like, yeah, that's odd, mate. But it's not. Like,
No,
we've
that's how you
been
brought
our
up.
bathers,
Yeah.
and we just sit there and that's where we used to talk crap.
Yeah.
And we had that really close relationship
Yeah.
because of what we went through. Because not every family goes through a transplant, let alone, almost 2, or living in Melbourne for so long, like your family, splitting up and stuff, living there and going through all the medical stuff, and his whole childhood going in and out of hospital.
Do you feel
most
like
families
it's
don't have that?
Do you feel like it's a time in your lives that sort of doesn't feel like it existed? Like, do you feel that it was a chapter that sometimes you got to go, oh yeah, that actually happened? Or, I can't
I
comprehend.
think I've always, that's what shaped me. Like living the hospital life, the transplant life, most families don't experience. So, when something happens that's horrible for someone, it's like, yeah, well, that's kind of what happens in life. Like that's, and to be honest, sometimes it's nothing on what we've been through as a family. If something big happens, it's obviously horrible, but as a family, I just find we don't sweat the small stuff as a whole family, It's like someone, I don't know what an example to give, but
a horrible example I can think of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if someone has, and this probably sounds awful, but if someone was happily healthy and their grandfather had a heart attack and passed away, and it's devastating because he's their grandfather, and we acknowledge and empathise and
but he's lived his whole life.
but he's lived,
Yeah.
and it was quick.
Yeah.
You didn't watch him in and out and have false hope of life again, and then
That's
goals
right.
and
That's
dreams.
perfect. That's a perfect.
That's
example.
exactly, and then
Yeah. And that's
then
what
you
I
get
mean.
angry.
It is horrible for
Yeah.
someone to lose someone. Don't get me wrong. It's really
is.
horrible. But when you've gone in and out of hospital your whole life and he was only 20
Yeah.
when he died.
And
Yeah,
like,
he wasn't
watch
far
him
off
get
his
sick.
21st.
Watch him
No,
get
he
better.
was almost
He
21.
was
But
21.
that's the hard part. It's like, hang on, like my brother has passed away and he didn't even get to his 21st birthday, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's
And it wasn't like he was just healthy, then he was sick. It was like healthy, sick, healthy, sick.
yeah.
The whole way through for me, anyway.
Yeah, that's
You
But
would
no.
have had a teaser of that. Like,
That.
I know when you've felt really great and you've got all of a sudden you're ready to kick ass and
he
live
did.
life.
Yeah.
He totally would have grabbed
Oh,
it
he did.
by the
Yeah.
balls.
He did. He
And-
was out, like, it was so good to see him actually living his life.
And happy.
Yeah, he was so happy. And
Yeah.
he was just out all the time. And he was, you know, partying because he was 18. And
Yeah.
And,
And
didn't
that's
he
one
actually
thing-
like school. Like,
one thing I don't know, I would have loved to have partied with him. Like
Oh
going
my
out on it
gosh.
because I wasn't 18 yet.
Yes.
So going out with him, just
Yeah.
I just know what he's like at home.
Yeah.
So we went to a few house parties, you know.
Nothing like. I
Oh.
remember watching him. I remember going to one of his gigs at a local club here, the Dog and Duck.
Oh, yeah.
And he was DJing, and I'd had a few vodka raspberries, and thought I was just as cool because I was up on the stage with the DJ, but it was
I'm
Dan,
with the DJ.
and I'm like, he's my friend, and I'm up there, and he was. You know, the arms in the air like
Yeah.
the DJs do, just
Yeah.
in the moment, absolutely.
He
You could just
loved
see
it.
in his face, it was happy Dan.
Yeah.
Like they're the memories of that I have of him, which
Yeah.
you see that. And I mean, it's incredible to think, I say it all the time, and we were talking about it before we started chatting on here, but grief comes in so many waves of levels with things. They say there's 5 stages of grief. I'm still learning about what these stages look like.
Yeah.
But you know, I think there's the happy side of it, which you almost feel guilty for being happy grieving.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is that like? Do you, I guess, Katie, with you, with the grief stages, with Dan, you know, do you remember anything, or do you now go through things? What, you know, when his anniversary and his birthday comes around, what grief sort of sticks with you?
Well, I think for me, one time quite recently, I was away we used to go there all the time when I was little, and Daniel, it would be a big family thing. And I was talking to Mum on the phone, and I was like, look, this is where this happened, this is where this happened. And then she sent me all the photos of Daniel and I on that windowsill that I just walked past. And
Mildura.
on that, on that playground that Daniel and I went on, you know, like things like that. And I looked at the photos and I was just like, you know, it hurt so much.
Yeah.
But I was so happy that I could be back at a place that reminds me so much of him.
Yeah.
Because obviously as a young kid, the memories aren't as fond as what, you know, I'm not very like, well, I remember that so well.
You hear a lot of stories.
Yeah, I do.
And then that brings back things for you.
Yeah. And so seeing these photos, I was like, I was happy that there was a place that I could remember him. And walking past the windowsill again, I was like, you know, that's how we had our photos on our last day. You know, just
We went back there as well. So my little family went there a couple days after Katie went with her friends. And it was so funny. So at Mildura, we just run amok. Like we'd be on Scoot because it's a resort, run amok we met all these families there. You know, we'd always meet
Sneak
there
into the
every year.
pool.
But yeah, we used to sneak into the pool when it closed. Very cheeky behaviour. Yes, we used to leave a little window open so we could jump in when security was gone, just riding our scooters around, everything. And now that I've got my son Cooper, and that's all he did. Like we hardly saw him because he was doing what we did as kids at the resort. And it was just like a flashback of
Your childhood.
my childhood with my family, like Daniel and stuff. And you, like, it was just a flashback of what I lived. I'm like, this is great. Like, it's such a good family holiday. And that's one holiday I think will always, you know, that we went every year because he loved Mildura. That was our Mildura family, we called it. We'd meet, other families, and we'd play cards and play drinking games and until someone got really sick. Like, there's just so many memory, and they're all happy. There was never a bad memory, really, in Mildura. Like, he was so happy every time.
Which is so important. It sounds like, you know, from the stories so far that, there's obviously such a sad part of Dan's life, but there was such a happy side of it too. That
And when he was hurt, like, he was so happy, and he loved everyone around him. He loved having a good time.
He loved life.
Oh, big time. He loved life, and he loved his sport. Like, his sport was, you know, everything to him, just like our family, and just poker, horse race. Like, he just loved it all. There was never a thing that he didn't love doing, really. He'd always give it a try as well.
Yes, that's the big thing.
He'd always try something.
You
like
know,
the footy. He just had to have a game because he's like, well, no, I need to play footy once in my life. You know, that was he had to do that with school.
Scrawny little thing.
Yeah, like, that's what, like, and could hardly run.
No,
But,
yeah, no air, no breathing.
no, but he just wanted to get in, and I think his stats were like 1 tackle. Like there were no, 1 handball, 1 kick, 1 tackle or something. And
Yeah.
he was so proud of it. He's like, yes,
You've done it. Tick that off.
Yeah, that's off my list.
So you talk about your mum and Dan and their relationship. Now, I had said many times I wanted to have your mum on and talk to your mum, but every time we've gone to do it, it's just the universe hasn't aligned it and allowed it. And I think there's obviously reasons behind that. And how is your mum? We always talk about, there's obviously you guys that are impacted, but for your mum and dad, very different. But for your mum, she has that.
Yeah, well, she was Daniel's rock.
Yeah.
Like that was, sorry, I'm going to, their relationship. Oh, is something I would love to have with my boys.
Yeah. Very special.
Oh,
very, very special.
the bond they had was just unbreakable. Like she was there through everything, even growing up, because I obviously was at home with my dad.
Yeah.
So mum was just there for Daniel through everything, all his procedures. She was his advocate, fighting for everything. Every hospital appointment, she was there. Living in Melbourne with him, like she had to separate from her kids too.
Yeah.
It wasn't just us. Like she had to be away from all her other kids and her work and her life
Yeah.
to look after her boy. Like that's just, she'd give anything.
And I think she's such a strong woman.
Oh.
And anyone that doesn't know your mum would hear this and go, "What? That's incredible for a woman, for a mother. A mother's love is undeniably the most strongest thing in the world. But when your child is going through this, you do everything stops and it becomes about them. And we were talking before about Dan never wanting to see you guys upset or put you in. As much as your mum would be suffering seeing Dan go through things, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan makes me emotional. Dan would never see the real impact on your mum, because I think she's a great role model of.
She's so bright,
so strong. Like this is what's got to be.
Yeah.
Come on, Dan. Like,
that's it. And she's
he
so
learned from
positive, through that whole process. Even when he was passing away, like she obviously was losing her son, but she was still just so positive and like it's going to be okay. Supporting
where he was going.
Yeah, it's bittersweet.
Yeah.
And he had that song, that song's very special to our family because it's bittersweet. He's not in pain, but it's shit.
Fucking horrible. It's
shit for us. Yeah. And it's shit for the people. It's shit for us. That's the part where it's not, he is free from pain. But their relationship is, that's, I think he's formal. So he finished school as well.
Yes. Which is incredible.
Yeah, he was really sick during year 12. So he actually won an award. The principal made an award that year for him because the resilience he showed going in and out of hospital and still managing to finish year 12.
Yeah.
That's him receiving the gold medal award.
Look at that hair.
Yeah.
So the school now has an award in memory of Daniel.
Yeah. So that's for students who persevere and show resilience no matter what's going on in their life, and they still manage to get through year 12 basically. So they've got it every year. Mum and my nana, they go and present it. Caitlin, I presented it last year and Caitlin goes as well.
Yeah. And each year for Mum, it's so close to his anniversary as well because it's when everyone finishes year 12.
Yeah.
So usually it's a couple of days before, a couple of days after, and Mum still goes every time.
Yeah.
She puts on a brave face, stands up there while they're talking about Daniel and presents this award so...
I think it's because we're so proud to actually have Daniel, was her son and our brother.
Absolutely.
And he's something to be so proud of. Like the person he was is just, it's out of this world really, the person he was. And to say you're related to him, sorry, Ken, but I'm lucky enough to have his last name.
Yeah.
So, when people see my last name, they're like, oh, you related to Daniel Cox. Like, yes, I am. I'm so proud to say I'm his sister because and that's what the award night, I think, for Mum.
Yeah.
She's so proud because
absolutely.
One, there's another kid that's gone through a tough time and they've managed to defy all the odds.
Yeah. Something I think is important about Dan, obviously, is he's a boy's boy, was a boy's boy. The men in his life. Now, you just were saying about you've got his last name, obviously, Katie, you don't. So there's stepdad and, dad and Ben.
Yeah.
you know, there's some real dominant, even Alex,
Yeah.
you know, men in Daniel's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your dad, Chappie, for me is like a second dad. Caitlin. I just, we're all family here.
That's
It's,
it.
you know.
He's like, yeah.
But, you know, for Chap, in the sense that he, had this young you as a little league Katie, and then
Yeah.
you older going through probably hormonal teenage stuff
yeah.
on top of
Yeah.
stuff. And then Benny, the way Ben
Yeah.
with his disability,
Mhm.
you know, we forget about this, the unsung heroes as well.
Mhm.
You know, someone's going to keep the ball rolling in different ways. Your mum and dad all had different roles.
Mm.
I say about Chap in particular because, you know, how do you think, from your opinions, you know, in each of you, how did he manage this, and how, you know, what effects has this had on him? Because he's very positive,
Absolutely.
but I have
Yeah.
seen him brought to tears.
Yeah.
Which,
I think he had to be like, well, he put his feelings aside for my mum, really. He
Yeah.
had to be strong for her, because at the end of the day, the person she'd go to is Chap, you know,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
her person.
yeah,
So he had to put a brave face on through the whole process of
yeah.
everything, you know, but he took on, when he was with me, he took on stepkids.
Mm-hmm.
He took on 2 6 step, you know, Ben has a disability and that's not easy. Love him, hilarious, but that's not easy.
Yeah.
And then, you know, taking on Daniel, he comes with all that as well, and a hormonal teenager, me. So
Attention-seeking teenager.
Yeah, that's me.
No.
But no, Chap, he, I don't know, he's like the glue for the family, really.
Mm.
He holds everything together. You know what Chap's like.
He's
He
very
would do
positive.
anything for anyone.
He
He's
would.
so positive. And I think, through the whole, if Mum didn't have him,
Yeah.
I don't think Mum would be who she is today.
Yeah.
Because that was her person.
Yeah.
Like, he
And
was
him
just,
and Dan had a very unique,
they
their quirky talks, and
yeah, they were quite funny together, actually.
Yes.
Because they just talk smack to each other or give a bit of banter.
yes.
Sometimes they'd even like to stir Mum up a bit, you
Yeah.
know? Like
Yeah.
in the loud, like you just see, and then, you know, give the look kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Chap, and they had Chap's cricket as well. So they
Yes.
had something really in common
Yes.
to talk about.
Daniel's last words to Dad even weren't nice words, but they were joking words, and Dad's proud of it.
What was it? Can we
Shut the fuck up, Chap. And Dad still tells me to this day, he's so proud of it
Yeah.
because he's like, that was our relationship.
Yeah.
It wasn't, that's not offensive in any way at all.
Yeah.
It was just that Mum was saying something and Dad was like, Nicole, whatever, like going and trying to calm her down. Dad just goes, shut the fuck up, Chap.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so casually, and Dad would just go, yeah, right. Okay.
It's been told.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's very special.
And yeah, Dad still tells me all the time.
He's
like,
he's like the keeper of all the stories, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
He very much.
Because he just remembers. I think it's because he wasn't like Mum. Mum obviously remembers, but he was that back, like just take a step back a little bit.
Yeah.
So he saw everything, you know, and he's like, he'll come. Oh, this is where we did that. I'm like, you're right. Yeah. Like you just forget, but he remembers. Yeah, everything.
All
of it.
Yeah.
And I think he has brings the happiness to it
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Positivity.
There's no morbid or.
Nah.
I think Dan has definitely, I mean, for me, he definitely lives on. And again, I think people think I'm crazy because I think I hear him sometimes, or I'm guided by, you
Got
know.
my little sidekick now.
And then you've got Coop, who
Yeah.
we talked about briefly before. So
Yeah.
let's just touch on your boys quickly because he is a mini Daniel, and
Yeah.
that must just be bizarre for you.
Yeah, it is bizarre. It's really comforting. Like, I don't know, when, like I said to you,
Yes.
you know, when I didn't mean to fall pregnant when I did. So when I
Yeah.
did, it was just like, oh, great. You know,
And you were 21.
I was 20.
20.
20 at the time. Yeah,
Yes.
20. And
I
then I was
remember
21 when I
that
had
day
him.
so vividly.
Yeah, so I was 20. You know, Daniel had been gone 3-4 years, I think it was.
Mhm.
Yeah, fell pregnant, didn't find out the second, then it was a boy. And I don't know, just Cooper is, it's like he was just sent to me from Daniel, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
everything about him,
Yeah.
he's so cheeky. And that is just Daniel. He was so cheeky. And Cooper's so much like him. He plays cricket.
Very inquisitive.
Yeah. He's just everything about, I don't know, even when, you know, I'm upset about Dan or something, he's like, it's okay, Mum. He's here. You know, like he just,
No.
everything he does, it's just like, okay. And some things I'm like, how did it, like he would
There
talk
was-
about some stories about Daniel. I'm like, you weren't even born. Like, how did you know that? He's, I just know these things.
There was actually a day that he was looking through a photo album and there was a photo of Daniel standing naked, like when he was like a toddler and he's in the shower. Anyway, and Cooper comes out with the photo naked and goes, look, Nanny, it's me, and does the same pose. And we put it next to each other and we've gone, holy crap,
Yeah.
that is Daniel.
Yeah, wow.
And like in his eyes, in his smile, even I see it. And I wasn't around Daniel when he was a kid.
Mm.
And some of the things he says, I'm like, dude, you're 8.
Yeah.
Like,
He's very mature for his age.
yeah.
But no, it's very comforting. Like after Daniel passed away, I told you I didn't get visits. Like I don't know, I just didn't feel like I got what everyone else was getting, basically. Everyone, was having a dream, and I just never got anything like that. And then I had Cooper, and I don't know, I was at rock bottom. And then after having Coops, like my life's just so different, obviously being a mother.
Yeah.
But it's like having Daniel with me through my adulthood life now, and it's really comforting
Yeah.
that I have something, I don't know, I just take it as a piece of him
Absolutely.
with me, It breaks my heart that they couldn't meet him and all this sort of stuff, but I just feel like Cooper has that little bit in him
Yeah.
where I'm like, okay, Dan.
Yeah.
Like things he says to me, I'm like, okay, thanks.
Oh, and
it's
that's
really
nice.
comforting.
It is
Sometimes the way he looks at you as well, you're like,
Yeah, he's
whoa.
just, I don't know how someone, his nephew, and he's just so much like
so much
him.
like him.
Yeah,
That's comforting.
It
That's
is.
really nice for you guys.
yeah, very. I think it's comforting for the whole family. Like mum, very special relationship she has with Cooper as well.
Yeah.
Because I think it reminds her a lot of Daniel as a child.
Yes.
So it's just comforting that he came in the family when he did,
Yeah.
and he's just got all those little traits and
Perfect little
cheekiness
timing.
and
Good
Just-
timing.
yeah.
Enough timing for you to go through
all the
rock bottom, which is awful because you don't want to have to go through it, but
No.
you have to.
Yeah.
As we learn in life.
Yeah.
You got to go through the shit to get to the good
Yeah.
stuff. And it sounds like he came at
perfect
the right time and the next chapter opened up.
Yeah.
My goodness, what a story. There's so much we
There's
could
so
talk
much.
about with Dan, but I think today the main, the biggest thing, there's been a few little key takes I'll personally take.
Mhm.
And I'm very grateful that you both came on. I know it's a hard thing to talk about, but I know we've got photos sitting in front of us. And if you're watching, you can see what I'm looking at. And it's just this cheeky smile of Dan. And, I know that he would be so happy and proud that you girls could talk about it. It's not the easiest thing to talk about. I struggle to talk about him at the best of times, but I think he's definitely left a strong legacy behind, even in the award that's with the school,
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
family, to the values, to just the way you both, your entire family look at life. And for anybody that's, lost a sibling or is going through something, I think it's very cliche to say, but you're not alone.
No.
And if there's one thing each that you could finish on, I guess, on a advice factor for somebody else that maybe be going through it.
I don't know, I had Alex through this whole thing.
Yeah.
So I had a person
Yeah.
to help me through it all, So I found that was easy having him to talk to vent. Actually, I don't know, made us pretty crappy at times because I put a lot on him. But I know having a person that you can talk to, because when you have a sibling that is sick, it is hard because the attention's not on you and it's unfair and you seem like, you're angry and all that sort of stuff. But there's a reason their attention's not on you. They need it more than you. And that's what I look back on now. I get it now, 15 years later, whatever. I get it now going back, my God, Mum, like you had to go through all that and you still had to try and find time for me.
And sometimes she actually did like,
Yeah, like there's little things, but it's just find a person you can talk to. So you have someone, you are important as well. So you need someone to talk to. And some people don't have anything and find a friend, talk to a friend because your feelings, your everything as a sibling, you're important.
Yes.
Even though the attention might be needed elsewhere kind of thing,
And that's good advice. That is good advice.
And don't sweat the small stuff.
I like that.
reckon one thing that I've always done to everyone I meet, whether they believe it, whether they don't, because I've had some people that say that's not true, tell their story constantly because it's you. You're a part of their story, so tell it.
Yeah.
Obviously his mottos and everything need to be told.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from me, someone who lived with him as he, was sick and everything, I've told so many people, whether they take anything from it or not, it's good to do that because they understand why I'm me, what I'm going through. When I'm upset, they know why. And they also know that my family, through that, like everything we live by, through his story.
Yeah.
So that's what my advice is, just tell their story when you're ready, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's taken 13 years and I've got you both talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the first time actually I've really spoken about it.
It's a very much an emotional trigger, but it's
Yeah.
good. And I think to finish up on the show, what I'll encourage everyone to do is there's a video on YouTube, Dan's
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
We're going to put the link up because I think, you know, everyone's heard about him now listening to this, and if they know him or they didn't know him,
This is the bucket list.
this is the bucket list
Yeah.
video.
How
So
much he got in.
yeah, I'll really encourage everyone to go and have a look and see the fun, cheeky, mischievous Dan, and you know he'll forever live on with us.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
thank you, girls.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening today. For more information on upcoming episodes, or you just want to check out what I'm up to, head over to my Instagram, CF Mummy. Now, I put it to you to go and make the impossible possible.